Daniel Smith from Jets Guru. Welcome to the show. All gas, no brakes. Let's go, Jets. Woo!
All gas, no break.
Wilson going to the air. Chased out by Daquan Jones. Wilson looking end zone wide open. Touchdown! First NFL touchdown for Zach Wilson.
Let's make sure we play like the New York Jets.
This is a disaster right here. Look at great protection. He can set his feet, no panic, and then crowd. A lot of time directing traffic. Gonna go deep. Has a man deep. It is. It's Davis. What?
What's going on, Jets Nation? CJ the Painkiller D. Simone here, and you are watching Jets Guru. Now, give it up for your host, Mr. Daniel Smith!
That's not how it's done. It's not.
What is going on, everybody out there? Jets Guru here. Welcome to another episode. Appreciate all the support as always. Please follow us on all our platforms that you see at the bottom header. This team is struggling. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, but bye week coming up here, you got to expect this team to play a little bit better. And I would say that Robert Saleh has to take on the challenge here as a first-time head coach going against Bill Belichick, his second time around here. And I think there should be some big changes with 2 weeks off. I think the Patriots now, they're at the point where they've got a really green quarterback, super young. They can't really do too much. They got to keep the game reasonable. Still, again, no real big outside weapons that can challenge. So, I think it could be, and the Jets could make this an interesting game. But it's all going to come down to Robert Saleh coaching and meeting that coaching level, and LaFleur meeting that coaching level as well. These guys have to take on the challenge here and get their young quarterback prepared, which means running the ball early and often, even when it doesn't work. Like discussed about before on Jets Guru, you have to be able to run the football. It's a if and there's no if, ands, or buts about it. If you're not running the football, you're making yourself one-dimensional, especially for a quarterback who struggled in the short passing game. I think you want to get his rhythm going and be able to dump the football off and, do what you need to do. We're going to see how this staff's going to come out, And like it's been said, a lot of these series, when these teams first come out, they're scripted. These are plays that you should go over and you should know. The one thing that LaFleur has shown over his time here with the Jets is that as the game goes on and it needs to evolve and you need to change and switch it up and do things like that he's able to do that. He's able to adjust to the game, and I think that's why you see the Jets have a better offense as the game goes on. So I think we've been putting a lot on LaFleur saying that he doesn't know what he's doing, but I think the Jets have responded well. The Jets, when you look at them previous years, let's say with Adam Gase, they would start out well in the first series and then kind of fall apart from there. They weren't able to make the adjustments that were needed to win the game and to push. And I think this team, you're starting to see, even in a first-time install or first-time play caller, you're seeing the ability to go out there and adjust, see, and really start to push the ball down the field and get the quarterback loose. But you don't want to start off the game like that. You want to control the clock, You want to limit the possessions, give the defense some rest because they've been getting killed this first quarter of the season. And that's going to come down to time management. So the head coach has got to get that right. The offensive coordinator's got to slow things down, make easy, manageable throws. And that includes Zach Wilson taking up that challenge as well and stop going for the big play every single time. I think you have to look and take your checkdowns underneath. I think if you do that, you'll be able to find guys. I mean, you just look, you got Crowder, Elijah Moore down there. The Jets are way more equipped than in a lot of other years that I've been a fan that, we've seen them come out here and really not have anything. And this year it's different. There's no excuses. I just think you have to stop looking for just the big play, the breakdowns, and that starts with play calling too, realizing who your quarterback is. And then, in football, everything is an extension of another unit. The offensive line hasn't been able to create enough holes for the running backs to be able to run the football. When you can't run the football, you can't do play action. A lot of that motion stuff goes away. You just really make yourself predictable. So it's not just one unit that's struggling for the New York Jets. It's many units. But I think if you take the blinders off from thinking that this team was going to be some kind of playoff team, which I don't know where they thought they were getting that from. But at the end of the day, if you look at this team as a true rebuild, like you're supposed to, I think what you'll find, and I think you'll find this more often than not with most rebuilds, you're going to struggle every time, right? You're going to struggle, and that's what they're doing right now. But they're in a lot of games, and I think you got to be excited about that. But you guys had them on like 11 wins. I mean, I don't honestly know, like 11 wins for the Jets, 10 wins. I think totally out of control, guys. We're gonna go over this schedule pretty soon, but we're gonna bring in Kevin to talk a little bit about Robert Saleh, this coaching staff with 2 weeks to prepare. I would expect them to come out with a little bit more energy, Kevin. I would expect them to at least move the ball down the field a little bit. These should be a series of plays that they've been working on. They feel comfortable with coming out the gate here, for the first few series, and then we'll see from there. But it's just the lack of ability. And here's the thing: they're not even able to get the reps. When you have drives that are, 3 and out, and all of a sudden it's the second quarter and really you've only gotten 6 reps on the field, how could you really make an adjustment off of 6 reps? How could you really say, well, we're going to deviate off the game plan and do something different? Because the game plan might work if you're able to get more plays out there. So I think, it's not just the coaching, obviously the players too, but what could this coaching staff do to get this team started out quickly?
The season with and you can hear me all right? All right, sorry, I got a thing that said my mic was muted, but all right. The second half of the season is going to be better than the first half of the season. We said that for those who listen to our audio podcast. This is the first time play callers, first time coaches, and Robert Saleh, LaFleur, they're going to be better after the season than they were before the season. And I saw Simon's comment at the bottom, 6 to 9 wins, to Daniel's point. That's what I thought going into the season also. That would have been the exact range that I gave them. And to your point, they're now learning how the players react in live conditions with the bullets flying. They're now figuring out what personnel does well and what they don't do well, communications, all those communication styles, all those types of things that goes into coaching, communicating, and leading a football team. And what we should see coming out of the bye is a bunch of self-scouting. One of the things we talked about in the audio podcast is that teams are coming in more prepared to face us in the first quarter than we are to face them. And they know, and they're predicting better how we're going to attack them, and they're stopping it. So going in, we've seen the offensive line improve over the last couple of weeks compared to the first 3 weeks. We've seen some of the run blocking get better, and some of Zach Wilson still a little bit inconsistent. I think that's going to maintain and stay that way. But there's going to be things where we should be able to set them up for success. There's also a great game film that you have right now on what Dallas did against this defense. And one of the things that scares me about Jets fans is that they see 400 yards passing and they see Dak with Lamb and Cooper throwing it all over the field. Man, Dallas had 10 points in the first half and was down 14-10. And that's the number one offense in football. They only got 12 more points in the second half, even with 450 yards passing. 10 points in the first half, 12 in the second. Remember, it was 29-29 after 4, and Dallas had a pick 6. So you got to take that you can't. Patriots defense is still good, people. Like, they didn't just all of a sudden get bad. They were still good. But there's some things and some concepts that LaFleur and Saleh and team can see. Well, here's some ways we can pick up some chunk plays. Here's some ways they use CeeDee Lamb and Cooper. So we need to see not 4 or 5 interceptions from Wilson, but some new concepts, because we have talent at receiver. And now you've seen Crowder on tape, what he does in this offense. You've even got Mims a little bit because he played more last week. I know he only had one catch here, one catch there, but you've seen what Moore does. You've seen what Davis does. And you've even seen, because what do the Patriots do really, really well? They try to take away your top 1 or 2 options and make you beat them some way other than your go-to things. Well, now you've seen how that secondary tries to take away Davis, tries to take away Crowder, and how you're going to combat it. And the Jets also have to go into this game, to your point on Saleh, knowing that they're probably going to try to take away those things in an entirely different way. This is really a chess game, right? And you got to kind of say, Bill Belichick's going to show us some of those concepts and then fake like he's showing you that concept and then show you something completely different. And how do you prepare these young players for what I just said? And that's going to be the challenge this week for the Jets. This is not an easy game in New England. Anyone who thinks because they saw Dallas put up 30-something points in overtime, even with Dak playing well, they didn't play well. And they were a pick 6 away from beating Dallas. So this is going to be a huge test. We need to see improvement. We need to see growth. Just like we said going into the season. This season was never about wins and losses. It was about getting better and an organization maturing and young players maturing. And that's what we got to get out of this New England game.
Absolutely. And when you talk about making progress with the offense, we also have to judge them off of a year of actual things that are going on. And, I just think when you look at this as an overall picture, the fans are bringing 30 years of negativity and losses and dumping them on people that just walked into the building. And with any relationship, it doesn't matter what it is, when you bring past baggage into the discussion, is always going to be an issue. So, they're not able to let go and really look at what it is, which is a true rebuild. And everyone's been like pretty much begging for this. Everyone was tired of the Jets patchworking everything because they needed to be on the headlines, because they wanted to compete in the New York market. And they finally let everyone do what they're supposed to do and follow the rebuild, and everyone was happy. And then the Jets start losing. That was a huge mosquito. The minute the Jets start losing, everyone wants to give up 4 games in. And I just think it's ridiculous, because what did you expect? I mean, everything is literally brand new. The fact that they even were able, and Zach has even been able to put together some, like the fact that they beat Tennessee and it was a comeback win, like that early. I think fans should be super excited about what's going on with the New York Jets. I think that it's ridiculous. I mean, like that early to put together throws and a win like that just shows you that the talent is there, that it can be done when everything comes together, when the offensive line blocks, when you get a little bit of running game going where you can give some breathing room for your quarterback, when you can throw the ball down the field and people catch the ball when you actually throw it to them. These types of things are really important, because, no one's talking about all the drops that has happened, for Zach Wilson as well, from multiple receivers. And some of them were first down, chain, drive moving type of drops. And, when you do that for a young quarterback, when the offense is going to struggle anyways, what are you looking for here? I mean, you look at Trevor Lawrence, they went and got their win, their hallmark win for their young quarterback. but he's been struggling too. I mean, Justin Fields been struggling. I mean, Mac Jones has been very protected, and out of all those quarterbacks that I mentioned, he's been asked to do the least. But when you watch Mac Jones and they get pressure on him, he's throwing picks too and making silly throws as well. It's just they don't ask him to do too much. The reads are easy and I say simple for what they're doing out there. And it's control the pace, control the game. And I think it's a good move for a guy like that doesn't necessarily have the physical tools to be an elite quarterback, because you don't stretch him too far in what he could do. You keep it simple, and then he learns along the way. And as he gets stronger and his mind develops in the game, then you can test him and push him a little bit more. And so he's not being asked to do what the others are. And so I would ask people to pump the brakes on how good Mac Jones looks and all this kind of stuff. If the Jets had the best coach that's ever done it, that's been to so many Super Bowls and playoff games, and it's silly. And I have the institute, because here's the thing: it's an institution there. Their offense, their defense, they've been running that for a long time. You could plug and play a guy like Mac Jones in a New England offense and say, "All right, kid, we're not going to lose it for you. We got you. Like we know how to play call for guys just like you, for an offense just like this. We got you." Right? And the quarterback's coming from someone that so like he could tell you, yeah, he can handle this, because his head coach was a guy who worked with Belichick. And so it's like, they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing, and they got a guy, a game manager, and to keep them in the games, they spent a lot of money in the offseason. To me, the Patriots kind of they overstretched in the talent that they got in return. And honestly, I think that's what you're seeing right here. What you're seeing right here is uh, a 500 ball club, with a young quarterback, and you could see a 7-9 team, with the extra game or whatever now. But you could see that from the Patriots if they're not careful here. And the Jets have already seen some of the things that they're going to do to limit Zach. Again, Belichick is tough because Belichick shows you one thing at the line, and then when pre-snap, and then when the snap happens, it shows you something completely different. So it's going to be imperative for the Jets offensive line to block here. Look, I mean, it all comes down at the end of the day. If you can keep your quarterback upright, he's going to make more completions than not. And I really believe in that. I truly believe in that. And so the offensive line, everyone's got to really step up. They cannot come out flat again, especially being in New England. New England, didn't really like the results of everything going on in last week. And so, I mean, when you look at it, they're going to be looking to beat up on a Jets team. The Jets have an advantage of preparing for 2 weeks. And how about this, right? Everyone talks about, oh, well, Belichick's defense, what he does to a young quarterback. Well, this is Robert Saleh's time to prove that he could do this to young quarterbacks who don't know anything about the NFL game. Robert Saleh is known as an up-and-coming defensive coordinator, and what he was able to do and adjust as a 49ers defensive coordinator and change up there to ultimately tighten the screws and then get them back to the Super Bowl. And so, he needs to start making some signature, wins on his end with his defense, with his play calling against some great minds. And I like you said, Kevin, it's going to be a chess match, but he's going to have to step up too. And he's going to have to, show a little toughness and show some trickery and confuse the young Mac Jones, as well as Wilson's getting confused by Bill Belichick. So, we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's not going to be an easy game. It's a division game. It's a great head coaching staff that's been together for a very long time, which makes it a lot easier for the players to digest the information that's coming at them. So, listen, you guys that were expecting all those wins, I'm really sorry, because I don't think they're going to come. But we're going to look at the schedule right now and get into the next phase of what we're talking about, because I think this is important. Everyone makes their preseason prediction right before the season starts, and then it's kind of like that's it until the end. Well, I think it's important to look at a team quarterly and see how they're changing and what is done different, what can be done different, and who they're up against, because it changes, right? You go from one period where you're like, oh, the Cardinals, they're not going to be bad. I expect them to be a good team and push for the playoffs. And then all of a sudden you wake up and they're undefeated. That's just how the season goes. I mean, look at the Cowboys' fortunes where they're at right now. So I think it's important to look at the schedule and get a grasp of what's ahead of you. So week 6 bye, Kevin. You got the Patriots. We'll go ahead and skip our predictions for that game since we'll save it right for the very end. Bengals week 8, okay, on Halloween. It's a 1:00 game. Uh, right now, if I got to pick the Jets, I'm not going to. I mean, it is at MetLife Stadium. So it's a home game, but I've liked what I've seen from the Bengals offense, specifically the passing game, what they've been able to do. They've got a host of receivers over there. Boyd, you got Higgins, was it Chase as well? They got a few people out there that can go and get the football, and they're going to test the young Jets secondary, who struggled, against the Falcons, in my opinion, and that was without Ridley. So this is a big test against New England. I want to see how they respond off of that game in the secondary. What are you looking at for that Bengals game,
Yeah, I
Kevin?
mean, they're clicking right now. Not a good matchup. The only way that we're in that game is if the defensive line controls the line of scrimmage. They can't give Burrow time in the pocket with those receivers. They can't. Burrow is a much better version of Matt Ryan. So no, I mean, I can't say that I would pick the Jets in that game. That's not a good matchup for us. It's a game where it potentially has to be a shootout. It's also one of those games where we would need a run game that you referenced earlier. Can we establish a run game and make that part of identity and keep a high-powered offense on the sideline? And that's not something that we've shown consistency of doing, right? Extending drives, keeping the other team off the field. We've shown the opposite. We start slow and keep their offense on the field until they get clicking, which is not a good recipe. So no, I feel bad because there's a lot of people going to that game. It's a Halloween game, so it's an exciting game to go to. So Jets fans have a good
Yeah.
time. But I can't pick the Jets in that game. That's not a good matchup for us.
No, and well, actually, here's the thing, though. I would prefer a shootout with the way that this team is built right now, because I've seen the ability of this team when they spread it out and they're kind of pushed against the wall a little bit. They do respond. That's one thing I do like about this team. The thing that scares me about this team is that they just don't have an identity offensively. So they have no consistency to start the games out. So it's like, who are we? And then by the time the game gets going, you can't run the ball because now you're down by 12 or 17. So, you make your offense very one-dimensional. And the running game is a very big part of this offense. At least it was supposed to be. When you look at the offense, the Shanahan offense, you expected it to be an important part. And so when you're down by 17, 12 early and you have to pull yourself away from that running game, you can forget about the play action, you can forget about the running game. The confusion is gone. And you could just drop in zone with this young quarterback, pre-snap, show him blitz, drop into zone after the snap, confuse them. And then the Jets offensive line is not blocking consistently very well anyways. And so then it makes it a time where he's rolling out of the pocket undesigned, and he's making big plays with broken down plays, which is great that you can make something out of nothing. But I want to see Zach make big time plays within the offense, within the pocket. And if he's going to throw, designed that way, not necessarily just because everything's breaking down like we just discussed. So uh, to me, I'm not really sure on this. I'm going to say the L there for sure. And that's at the halfway point, week 8, or used to be. So going into week 9 now, Thursday night matchup. Okay. So 11-4 there, 8:20 game against the Colts. This is in Indianapolis. The Colts can run the football, good offensive line. Wentz is, taking a step back, in my opinion, as a quarterback. I don't know if it's all the injuries, but we'll see how he responds if he stays healthy throughout the course of the year. But hey, listen, it, I still gonna put down the Jets here for a loss. Is it a winnable game? I think so. I think it's a winnable game. I think all of these have been games where you look at the Jets and they're gonna kind of be in them. And the difference between good teams and bad teams is good teams finish out, bad teams find a way to lose. And that's what we're seeing with the Jets. They're gonna find a way to lose. And then there's a very winnable game for the Jets, Kevin, at Houston, November 28th. But here's the thing. Even Houston is showing a little bit of fight with Davis Mills here. So, I mean, yes, the Jets should win, but, it's not necessarily a cakewalk when your team is struggling and you've had a hard time to generate offense as it is. So, I mean, where do you see the Jets there with that Colts Texans kind of back to back there to end November?
No, I mean, so the Cincinnati game, well, I said that we would likely lose that game. That's the game that Becton should be coming back. So that's an opportunity to establish the left side of the offensive line and start putting together a run game. I don't expect it to all click in his first game back, but I'm hoping we can start establishing that identity that you referenced to set the table up for those two games. So the Colts game, Texans game, hopefully we have AVT and Becton steamrolling on the left-hand side. Fant has
Excuse
been
me, the Dolphins are right in sandwiched in between the Colts and the Texans, and I think the Dolphins are a winnable game because they've been struggling so bad and they've had injuries.
no 100%. So those honestly, when I looked at the second half of the schedule, we got two Miami games, we got Jacksonville, a Houston, a Colts game. Like those are games where we should literally be able to put, whatever LaFleur and Saleh are trying to put together as an identity, running, setting up plays, solid play design, understanding the players, understanding the concepts and how we want to attack those teams. Those are kind of the teams that are right in a very similar place as us on trying to put things together and not having established, mature rosters with everything going on. I know Wentz is an established player, but the wheels are falling off in Houston. Mills, yes, has made some plays. He's also had 4 and 5 interception games. So he'll have one good game and then one disaster game. And I expect us to be able to put pressure on Wentz. I expect us to be able to put pressure on whoever's playing quarterback in Miami that week. I expect us to put pressure on Mills and make them make tough plays against our secondary. Guys, we got to start getting some interceptions starting this week. We got to start getting some interceptions and we got to start cashing in. So those games, those would be the games that I would circle. Like Jets, it's time to show why you're probably still picking in the top 10 of the draft. And maybe hopefully it's closer to 8, 9, 10 because that means you've shown some things. Some things are coming together like the run game, like Wilson, like the D-line and secondary where you're only a couple pieces away. But those are games where the Jets' identity of running and Wilson hitting on plays and understanding the defensive concepts and what they're trying to do and extending drives and those types of things, those are the games you got to make it happen, right? The Miami secondary has been banged up all year. Colts just lost Blackman, their best safety, for the season. Like, these are games we got to take advantage of those. I know Atlanta had some banged up corners, and we didn't take advantage of that as much as we should have. But this is I said the second half of the season is going to be better than the first half. It's a 17-game season. So we get past the New England game, get past the Cincinnati game. I expect the Jets to slingshot, not to the playoffs, but to an identity on offense and defense that we can hang our hat on going into the next season. So I look for big things in those 3 games. I'm optimistic that the Jets can start putting together some things on offense and defense against those caliber teams for us to see the solid vision that you referenced at the very beginning of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, you just look at the rundown of these games. So, week 9, the Colts, week 10, Buffalo, week 11, Dolphins, week 12, Houston, 13. So Eagles, Saints, Dolphins, Jaguars until you run into the Bucks. I think when you look at this, and like you said, with the second half schedule, and you look at how these teams have actually played out, obviously Buffalo is the cream of the crop there. They could really beat up on teams offensively. with their dynamic play and how they're able to run the ball. But also,
Their
he's
offensive
taken
line has
Josh has
been
taken
really
that next
bad this
step.
year. Their offensive line has not been good.
You cut out a little bit there on me. I wasn't able to hear what you said, Kev.
Oh no, I was saying like the Buffalo offensive line hasn't been very good this year. It'll be interesting
No,
to see. Plus, we don't know who's going to be healthy on the schedules, all right? Like we're making predictions as of today. So I
sure.
think some of those
Right
matchups are
now,
going to be
yeah.
interesting.
Well, the quarter, that's why we're doing the quarter season
Yeah.
review, as it stands now. And then as we get a little bit past halfway, we'll look at, what is left as well. But, with Buffalo, it's just, Josh Allen, at least right now, is taking that next step. And that is what a good quarterback or a great quarterback is supposed to do for you is that, the Buffalo has had a good defense these last few years. And as time is kind of went on, like any other team, it's hard to keep all the pieces together. So they're not as formidable as they once were like 2 years ago. And so I don't expect this team to continue to be able to keep, the core of it together. But if Josh Allen could be a franchise quarterback, he's going to elevate the play of everyone else. Not just that, but the ability to be able to run the football as well and his physicality at the line. It's just very hard to gather and bring this guy down. He's a big dude, and so it's tough. It's not easy, and the Jets are gonna have to deal with him for many many years moving forward. When you look at that Miami game, Week 11, that's a winnable game. I really don't know who's going to be the quarterback, who's going to be healthy, and you roll into Dolphins, Texans, Eagles, who have struggled as well. Kind of seesawing. Same thing with the Saints, and then you run into the Dolphins and then the Jaguars. I mean, you could get right as a team in that stretch. You may not win a lot of those games just because those teams are a little bit more experienced than you. Maybe not as talented, but a little bit more experienced. But you could get right as a team. You can find your identity in the schedule on what you want to do moving forward with some of these young players. Again, youngest team in the NFL, starting the most rookies. That is not easy to do in a first time install, offense, defense, and just everything, So it's tough. It's not easy, guys, when you look at this and how everything is broken down. But I think right around here, so I'll go with a Bengals loss. I'll go with a you know what, Kevin inspired me. I'll go with a win against the Colts. We'll go, 1-1 there. Loss to Buffalo. That would put us at 2-7. I think we beat Miami to get to 3-7. I think we beat Houston to get to 4-7. And I think we lose to the Eagles and the Saints, even though we play well in those games, to get to 4-9, and then we get to Week 15, Kevin, and that's interesting because it's all Florida teams from there on out until the final game of the season. It's Dolphins, Jaguars, and Buccaneers. Good thing is they play at Miami late this year. The heat is not that much of a factor, and trust me, it does matter. I think it's awful for them whenever the Jets come late in the season. You totally take away the home field advantage against a division opponent, but it is the way it is. And then they play the Jaguars, which is going to be an interesting game, Kevin, because number one and number two draft picks playing each other. It's late in the season. The team should know each other, know it themselves a lot better, and know the offense and everything. So it should be interesting how they come out here and play, and then ultimately playing the champs Week 17. But by that time in the season, how many wins do you think the Jets have? Do you think they're around 4 or 5 wins by that time, or do you think they're still struggling around 2 or 3?
Nah, I think we're probably looking at probably the 3 or 4. Like that's what I would have said. 3, 4, maybe 5. Depending on how some things break in their way. Because some of those games you had as L's, I kind of have as 50-50 games. The last 2 games, Tampa and the Bills, kind of depends on where they are with their season. Like at that point, right? Those are games I'd put L's on unless they rest all their players because they've already locked up home field or something like that. But those are games that, I mean, those are mature teams. McDermott's been coaching the Bills for a while. Arians and Tampa is a finely tuned machine ready to make Super Bowl runs. I'm not saying they're going to the Super Bowl, but that's what they're prepping for. They're almost using the season as the launch pad, right? The Jets are foundation building at the bottom. They're talking about launching towards first round buys, both those teams. So very different, like to even compare those. But up until that point, the New Orleans Philadelphia games are 50-50 games, much like the Titans game. Kind of depends. You could get some breaks and maybe steal a game because Winston will throw a game away. Hurts is a 3 TD, 2 INT guy. Like those are games where what team shows up for Philly and New Orleans, right? Like you don't know. They can beat New England and then get stomped the next week as the New Orleans Saints. So those are inconsistent teams. But the other two teams, every other game on the schedule is like, can the Jets put it together? Can these coaches put together a consistent game plan on how we're going to attack? And, Jets fans being a 4 or 5 win team is not the worst thing for the Jets right now as you look to add 1 or 2 more big pieces. So, I think just like you said, 4 or 5 wins probably going into those final 2 Tampa and Buffalo games. And those games are almost throwout games depending on where they are, like in their season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really hard to tell, especially right now, because they just haven't found their identity yet. So I don't know what the team is going to be like by that time. But again, we're just having fun with it. JR, jump in with us, man. Tell us what you're thinking about some of these games here, and like where do you have the Jets at in the middle of that schedule, and by the time they get to those Florida games in December, how many wins do you think we have?
All right, I'm gonna go with my original prediction was 5 games, and I'm looking at the schedule now, and I still see 5 games. So I got us, beating the Colts. I see us the Texans. I see one against the Dolphins, and I see the Jaguars. And so it go either way, but yeah, I got us at 5 wins.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it, and if the Jets are able to come out of this season with 4 or 5 wins, I still think that's a victory just because they're a 2-win team with a full first year install. Now, that doesn't mean expectations don't grow from there. I mean, obviously, we're not the Dolphins, though. Like the Dolphins had real expectations of making the playoffs this year. That is not where we're at. So it's kind of like if we got stuck in that mode, like next year the Jets should be a 7-win team. They should be like how the Dolphins were last year, that kind of bubble team, kind of making a little bit of noise, and you're like, oh, are the Dolphins going to make the playoffs? And it was like ultimately they fell on their face a bit. That's how the Jets should be next year. They should show a lot more growth second year, under everybody. But this year is like, this is so new, man, and this is like so green. I mean, greener than you've never seen a Jets team this young before. I don't even know if you've seen the Jets start this many rookies before, in combination with the new head coach, and all the other pieces that we've spoken about. I mean, it is really like everybody is really learning on the job. Like, do you really think that LaFleur knows what kind of play caller he is? He's never called plays before, man. You got to let these guys eat a little bit at the table before you start pushing them off. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no sense of clarity from the fan base at all. You got to give these guys some time, because that's what happens is the New York media starts feeding off of it. And then once they see the fans are feeding off of it, they start boosting it up so they can get more viewers and more papers read, etc. So, I think that if you want this transition to work well, I think that you need to calm down with the expectations a little bit and just enjoy, again, the individual storylines of the season. What could Zach Wilson be? Could he still it's still early, man. This whole thing isn't wrapped up yet. This kid still has a lot of games to put offensive numbers up. And there's really no clear-cut rookie who's really blowing everybody out of the water from the quarterback position. I'm really surprised, like the NFL this season. I think what you're seeing more than a lot of other seasons is that, like, how it should be. These guys are all good. I mean, that's how they got here. It's just like the better teams, they just put it together. You're seeing a lot more games where you're like, surprised. Just, you're like, wow, I can't believe this team hung in there. I can't believe they fought. But, the game tape, the training, all of that stuff is just getting better. The video learning, these guys can pull up video of a quarterback. They could watch tape. They can look at all the movements, the little habits he picks up, and then you see them in game, and then you respond accordingly. This is stuff. This is getting into fine-tuned chess. This isn't baseball, where the GM is sitting in his box and he's like, all right, just follow the statistics that we laid out for you for this game. It's just, you don't deviate off the sheet and we'll be all right. It's like, in football, there's a lot of coaching that's going on. There's a lot of play calling that's going on. So it's not easy. It takes a while for teams to gel and get it together. But I think if people have a little bit of patience, I think in a couple of years, I think we'll be all right. But we'll see. So, Kev, well, give me the score. What do you got for this game here on Sunday? What do you think? Tell me numbers. Let's see it.
And I think it's going to be, unfortunately, 27-21 Patriots, and I even think it's 27-14 for most of the game, and we get a late touchdown to make it close. This is the New England roster, especially their defense, is a little further along than either side of our football is. Our offense or our defense is still establishing themselves. That defense of the Patriots knows what they're doing. Bend, don't break. Very mature roster, very mature secondary, which scares me the most, right? There's not a lot of youth in the defensive side of the ball, but a lot of pieces that know what they're doing. Judon got hurt last week, but came in the series later. He's on pace for 20 sacks right now, right? He's got like 7 sacks, 6 games in, right? So, the Jets, to me right now, maybe they can hang around for a while, but this isn't a good matchup for us. Like I said at the beginning of the show, and the Jets will have to get some turnovers and get some breaks to be in this game because we are not Dallas. We're not 5-1. Dallas has the number 1 offense in football, and it's not close. Over 30 yards a game ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Dallas right now is further along with pieces, with an established offensive line, and with Dan Quinn as their defensive coordinator. They have everything over there, and still barely snuck out a win in overtime. And the Jets on the road right now, expecting them to go into Bill Belichick's house and pull off a big upset. I'm not saying it's not possible. The Patriots haven't won a game at home. They lost to Miami at home early in the season, the first game of the season, but even that was 17-16, right? A low scoring, grind it out, get a break, somebody misses an extra point, you hit a field goal, and you steal a game. That's the Jets' only chance, which is why I have a hard time seeing it happen with an immature roster that's still developing. So I got 27-21 Patriots, unfortunately. And I never pick against the Jets, but this one I just don't see it.
Well, I'm going to go full homer in this one, and I'm picking them because, I think that the Jets, even though they got beat in the last matchup, there were so many opportunities in that game because Mac Jones is just not going to be asked to do what you need to blow a team away. And you see the same thing with Sam Darnold. When you have a team on the ropes, you just can't push the button for the knockout because the mistake is waiting. Patriots are going to allow the Jets to hang around a bit too much, but they're going to make mistakes this time around, and the Jets are going to capitalize, and we're going to be able to put points on the board. Obviously, when you look at the points per game, it's not there. But listen, the Patriots are giving up more points than they're scoring. They're giving up only 3 points less than the Jets. The total yards isn't that far off. The passing yards isn't that far off. The rushing yards isn't that far off. Yards allowed, all of that is very close. Again, what we talked about, the difference is the experience of the head coaching staff and the simplicity in which they can make the play calling and the offense for their players because it's been there before. They know how to translate that better. They're not building it, but doesn't mean they can't be had, as you could see. They have been had because when you have a quarterback that can't throw you back into the game and you have limited weapons and you leave teams hanging around. Listen, I saw them come out and beat the Titans, and they could do that type of stuff, but you got to take the underneath. You got to be careful with the football, and you got to catch the ball and move the chains. You can't have key third down drops. When your quarterback's struggling, he makes a nice throw and he bails you out. You got to catch it. It's just they've got to be able to run the ball. But I think ultimately it's going to be a close game either way. 27-21, 24-21. 30-27, 2017. These, just close 7.6 point game. But I'm going Homer this time. Coming off of 2 weeks to prepare for Mac Jones. I better see something. I better see a little fight because to me, he don't got it. And so, if you're not putting pressure on him, if you're not able to disguise coverages, if you're not able to take advantage of some of his throws that he's made, that he's gotten in trouble for and gotten burnt on this season early, Mac Jones, then, he'll go 25 for 27, and then like 2 of those throws are interceptions. It's like, it's just one of those things where he's learning as well, and he's trying to process everything. So make it difficult for him. Pass rush has got to be there, man. It's got to be there, no excuses this time around. So, listen, appreciate all the support from everybody.
Wait, what's JR got? What's JR's pick?
Thank you. Because I'm
What's
the only
JR's
one.
pick?
Thank you. All right, y'all guys.
JR, which one you want, man?
So y'all got the knowledge. So you get your predictions, your knowledge, all this, all that. I go off feeling, and usually my feeling's right. And I was feeling like the Jets were going to pull this off for some reason until I started listening to Kevin talk, and he kind of like took me right out of it because he was spitting some facts. So my prediction is Pats 31, Jets 17. You heard it here, fellas. I'm sorry. It's not going to be that close. It's not going to be that close. I know.
It's not even close. I mean,
no,
please.
I know.
All right,
I
well,
hope I'm
hey,
wrong.
hope
I'm wrong.
Well, I think it's going to be a lot closer than that, but we'll see. I mean, because honestly, this team, every time I think they're going left, they go right anyways. It's a rebuild. You don't know what's going to happen when they come out there and how they're going to respond. But, either way, I think in the second half, they've shown that they have the ability to come out and make adjustments. So I think the game will be close. It'll come down to turnovers, obviously, and where those turnovers happen, because I think the Patriots are going to have to fight for points. The Jets, the bend don't break thing is real with them. I really do. They're feisty, man. They really are down there. So, I'm excited again for every game that I watch because I don't have any expectations of them winning the Super Bowl or anything. So, I'm going with the win, man. I'm going with the win. So, we got a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan in here that, for some reason, here's the thing, right? I know this guy from like years ago. We worked together in corrections, right? Now, instead of coming on here and like sharing my page, right? And like supporting, right? And uplifting another brother, right? He comes on here and he says, Jets are a joke, this, that, and the third. And he doesn't share it and he doesn't support it. He just talks shit. And I don't understand that because I know this person. I work with him and we're cool. And like we're like not little kids, like we're adults, and it's like we're all trying to make it and we're trying to grind and we're trying to get to where we need to be. And I just don't understand why people do that that know you. It's just very puzzling to me. But I appreciate all the love and from the people out there, and most of them are people that I don't even know, to be honest with you. People that I actually know have expectations of who you are and what you were 10, 15, 5, 7 years ago. And those people you need to put aside and realize that the people that do support you and push forward, they're here all the time. So and they are, and you guys are here all the time. So I appreciate all the love and the support. Keep sharing, and eventually we're gonna wake up, we're gonna be good. Remember, hey, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are rolling around in them ugly orange uniform, stumbling around the NFL for like 20 years. So I'm pretty sure that eventually, and you look at the Patriots, they weren't something special, 20 some odd years ago before Brady rolled in there. So all it takes is one, and to get the organization going, you could start rolling from there. So we'll see what happens, but appreciate the support. Love you guys. Peace.
All right, enjoy your movie, man. We out.
All I hear, go get the money. So I go get it. Hate means I do something right. So I'ma let 'em. Yeah, I'ma let